When the Finance Minister speaks of Eskom being an impediment to growing the economy in South Africa, how do we then trickle that down to the lives of the most vulnerable in South Africa?
Well, economic growth is critical and vital to all of us. And the obstacles to growth on the supply side of the economy do need to be addressed. The question mark around that is whether or not these constraints are actually genuinely being addressed and are being addressed in the most efficient and productive way. And I think that's where people have raised a lot of questions. It looks like essentially the political will to deal with the core causes of failure at Eskom, failure at Transnet, failure in Transnet, failure in all areas of public transport. All of these areas are absolutely critical and central to economic growth in South Africa, and they are being poorly managed and incompetently managed, and that has a severe effect on, in particular, on 90% of South Africa's population.
Add to that municipal debt, the Finance Minister announcing measures there. Is it as easy as throwing money at municipalities?
No, it's a governance problem. And the question is whether the approach taken to addressing failures of municipal governments are actually being addressed properly. Again, it's a political will issue. In many cases, these are politically connected individuals who are responsible for essentially stealing from municipalities. And the money that is taken in rents and in user fees are not actually used for the purposes for which they're being raised. They're being stolen. The deficits then occur, and then they're asked for bailouts, but they want to leave those teams in place that are the cause of this. Now, the problem with politically connected individuals is that they are essentially protected. And so you don't deal with the problem. You throw more money at it, and it just becomes more money thrown down a black hole.
In digital telecommunications, there's going to be a switch off of analog signal and finalize the migration to digital signal. When you take a look at South Africa's social makeup, socio-economic makeup, I mean, already it's gone ahead, right? And it's just a matter of finalization. How would you assess the impact that this will have, again, on the most vulnerable in the country?
Yeah, so that is difficult to assess. I think a concern that has been raised by some is that this also required input from, public agencies like the SABC board, which doesn't exist, and so it's unclear. But I'm not sure that is basically the most fundamental contributor to economic growth in South Africa. We just haven't got the basics. We're basically regressing on the basics. And that's incredibly dangerous. We're not continuously improving. And the basics will be energy, water, infrastructure, roads, transport, making sure that we don't have syndicates who are essentially trashing our public facilities so that they can basically gain business. That, unfortunately, is what we're seeing at the moment, and it appears to be absolutely no action to address that of a systematic nature.
Yeah. He also mentioned that we're clearing the backlog in work visa applications and are implementing the recommendations of the Skilled Immigration Review. Despite these gains, the Finance Minister says the challenges in electricity and logistics threaten to undermine the reform agenda.
Yeah, it's difficult to assess where that is because I think there have been enormous obstacles on the sort of the visa application process. People are really put through the ringer when skilled personnel are coming to South Africa, as if we need to protect South African jobs against those skills coming to South Africa. And it's from the region as well as from sort of Europe and the United States. There's no problem in getting highly skilled people here, but we've actually tried to keep them out, and that's a problem.
This Operation Vulindlela that is being hailed, are we able to assess the impact that it has made? He spoke of progress in fast-tracking reforms in priority areas that you mentioned, such as electricity, water, transport, and immigration.
We have to look at results on the ground, and the results aren't there. We see regression. I mean, it's all around us. It's not only on paper. You're actually seeing the physical sort of aspects of these results are patently clear to everybody. So the collapse in many cases of water infrastructure of transport systems. So we're not using electrical rail systems anymore. We've regressed on that transport. We've got accumulations of stock from mines because it can't actually get to the harbors. All of this is pretty disastrous. And so I don't see that we have any success from this in any material. In any material way. It's largely talk. We actually have to get to the point of results, and we are not showing them at the moment.
How do we get to a point of results?
Well, I think that the problem at the moment is very much at the level of the sort of political imperatives of the governing party at the moment. Unfortunately, they appear to be unable to deal with the corruption within their ranks. And it's too difficult for them because it touches too many people that are too connected. And as such, they hold back. And so many policy decisions just don't make sense when you're dealing with that kind of context. So we really do need to get to a position which you see in many well-run countries where the policy decisions make absolute sense and you see results in real time. We're not seeing it, and we actually need to get to a point where the elephant in the room has to be addressed. And the question is really whether the governing party is going to do it now or whether we're going to have to use the consequences of an electoral process to be able to get there.
The road to 2022, what do you see? How is it paved?
Well, I'm hoping that we don't end up with a myriad of short-term decisions that don't really address our long-term fundamental problems. So I do expect that there's going to be a mad rush to try and create the impression that things are being done. Unfortunately, that hasn't really worked in the past. I'm hoping really that the imperative of the electoral sort of process and 2024 substantially modifies behavior in anticipation of that. And people start to actually do something and make some real hard choices and decisions. What tends to happen, which you note in the budget speech and the rest, is there tend to be a sort of an issue raised that they have to make real hard decisions about whether or not we have improved social programs versus all the catastrophes and crises that have to be funded. But the hard choices at a political level are never made. And this is really what we're expecting now. They have to make some hard choices. They could wipe out 50% of the cabinet and ministerial positions and save an enormous amount of money and streamline decision making. And if we had to see something like that as an immediate response to the position we're in, I think somebody would start to believe them just on the promises. But I think most people are not going to believe anything until they see results.
Professor Alex van der Heever, Chair of the Social Security Systems Administration and Management Studies at the University of Witwatersrand. Thank you very much.